So we got one big box with all of today's stuff in it. Didn't think about this. The issue is hurt my finger. It's a little sore. Makes it a little tricky to use it to apply pressure to open the box. But I guess I got it open just. So why don't we begin at the top? First we got Sailor Moon R. I think this would just be the first part. Yes. Probably should have looked up the episode number beforehand, but Sailor Moon R being released is notable because there is an episode that the A to B Uncut Edition did not include. See, and it might actually be within that range, so we might have it. It all depends on whether the little pink-haired girl, whose name I'm brain farting at the moment. It depends on whether or not she goes onto an island and there's a dinosaur. Oh well. The more important thing is the discs, which I guess I should turn them right side up so that we can take a look at the artwork, even if it's somewhat tricky to sometimes make out. Where was that? Oh yeah, of course. Because at first I thought I saw the circus people in that one 4-person drawing, but I knew that was wrong because it can't be the case. That was season 4. So this is DVD, Blu-ray, and interesting. We have a booklet. It's like episode information, character information, artwork. That was quick. And an insert to hold the place for part 2 when that comes out. Next up, we've got Is the Order a Rabbit? Complete collection, although, am I remembering right, the second season aired or started airing or was announced to air? This feels light. There's only one disc in here, isn't there? Region A, Japanese, all 12 episodes. I think we established last week that when Sentai does a one-disc thing, they don't even say the number of discs on the back. I'm just not getting any. Oh. Ow. I got it started. Ouch. Come on. Stupid plastic. This is getting annoying. Let's start shortcutting. Hey, look, one disc as expected. But before I make any judgment calls about the discard, I guess, I want to take a look in here. Gosh, stupid trash. This one is 2 discs. And this is what I was curious about. As you can see, the artworks for the first discs are the same. Give or take being rotated due to the disc not being straight. Disc 2. I have no idea what it's about, but that's right. Except we have the familiar Zero F, which is season 4. And let's begin with the unopenable one. Oh, That kind of hurt, but that meant I got into the plastic. Now if only I can separate the plastic enough from the other plastic to start tearing it all up. I'm gonna go lazy again. That should get it started. That should get it off. Hey, one disc. And it's a little naughty. I'm trying to remember if I watched 2 or 3 seasons of this. Probably not going to watch this season, but I do remember it being frustrating to watch. It's fascinating as well. So this one has 2 discs. The artwork on these is completely different than the one on here. Interesting. Region A only, subtitle only. Pretty much the expected deal. Next up we got One Piece Season 7 Voyage 1, which is good. So I'm definitely interested in more, especially since after Thriller Bark is, and some of y'all have been saying that it's interesting. It gets really good again. I mean, the nice thing about One Piece has always been that filler stuff that's been there. This one was disc 1. The stuff that's been in there. Disc 2. It's not bad in terms of filler or not the most exciting stuff, but it definitely gets higher than that. So it kind of remains on okay to good, and then it gets excellent at some points. And this is just Adventure Time, the complete 5th season, which in the past would mean that I'd normally watch it. Actually, I don't open that, do I? But I want to watch anime. I got a lot of anime to watch, a lot of things I'm curious about. Another thing arrived this week, and that's Noragami, which is Region A according to Funimation. As you can see, I did not remove it from its plastic, so we get to explore it here, even though I don't expect it to be that spectacular. So packaging-wise, that is. Content-wise, this actually looks very curious. Blu-ray 1, Blu-ray 2, so these are the Blu-ray discs. Oh look, they are reflective. Right. Very reflective. And invertible cover. Disc 1, Disc 2, these are DVDs, of course. Also reflective. Also invertible. Nice. So, assuming I get this in there safe and sound, putting these scissors away. What is this week's anime DVD collection update? So I'm finally talking about anime again. This one, though, I probably would have watched regardless. Now, technically, I didn't watch Little Witch Academia. I watched Little Witch Academia 2, The Enchanted Parade. That was the Kickstarter-funded one, and I think it was shown at San Diego Comic-Con. And people who donated to the Kickstarter got online access to watch the digital 720p version during San Diego Comic-Con. So that expired over the weekend, so I made sure to just go ahead and watch it just because I wanted to watch it and be able to at least talk a little bit about it. You know, I can't talk too much about it since it's only an hour long. That means it's really easy to spoil. Now, first of all, my opinion of it was that I actually really liked it. to the point where, I don't know, I'd have to watch the first and the second one side by side to decide which I like more. I know some people found the second one to be pretty predictable, but I can't really hold that against it because I thought the first one was also kind of predictable. It's kind of a pleasant execution of something well known, where you already kind of have pretty good ideas overall what's going to happen, and there's just little specific details here and there that need to be filled in, and maybe some people were thinking that the second one had those filled in or something, but I wasn't watching it to feel challenged in that regard. I was watching it just kind of for the I don't know, how would you describe it, because I thought it was nice. I really enjoyed it, and I'm looking forward to getting it on DVD and or Blu-ray. I do believe I funded enough that I will receive a Blu-ray copy. I guess it's going to be a signed one or something whenever they make those and ship them, if that gets held up, of course. You know, Kickstarter, you never know. Anime's always been solid on Kickstarter as far as I can tell. But yeah, anyways, I enjoyed it. So next up, I watched Sword Art Online 2 Volume 1. The reason for that is actually pretty simple. First of all, my friend wanted to watch it as well, and we only watched the first disc while he was over. It was kind of a shorter evening anyways, but since I was in the middle of watching the volume, I went ahead and fired up the second disc just after I finished my rewatch of Star Trek The Next Generation, and I have to say I'm enjoying it. And I guess a big part of that is, if you go to the first Sword Art Online, there's the first season and the second season, or maybe the first half and the second half. I'm not exactly sure how they might have been broken up airtime wise, or what they might be officially called, but maybe the first arc, second arc. Second arc I did not like at all, because it was just uncomfortable, kind of forgot the sorts of things that made Sword Art Online interesting, etc. With Sword Art Online 2, it felt like they knew they had to kind of catch your attention in a different way, and I thought they did a good job of that. Pacing seems a little slower, but I'm okay with that, because so far it hasn't made any grievous mistakes, such as characters forgetting, oh, we're playing, well, I guess I don't want to talk about that because I might have said it before and it might be spoiler, but it's been entertaining and curious. I feel like one character's backstory is a little over the top, but it's not quite as bad as purple-haired girl from Angel Beats, whose name I cannot remember. I thought that backstory was way too contrived and one-sided, and that made that feel unrealistic. This one kind of has a sort of similar vague feeling, but didn't quite go overboard. Now, I'm not sure if I would necessarily say that it's definitely a masterpiece. After all, there's a lot more Sword Art Online 2 to go through before I have any idea there, but it is interesting watching, and I find it very entertaining. So I think I mentioned last week that this was probably going to be what I was going to watch next. Sword Art Online 2 creeped in there a little bit just because my friend wanted to watch it, but as soon as I finished that, I put on No Game No Life, and it was actually very fun. And I think as I was opening it last week or the week before, I was unsure what to think of what kind of anime, or what to guess what kind of anime it was, because as I mentioned, I definitely see chess pieces here and there. There's a chess piece there, and I was kind of wondering the relevance, because I thought it seemed more video gamey, and I guess that's not a bad way to think about it, because while they're video gamers, this one is actually very incredibly comparable to Problem Children Are Coming From Another World, Aren't They? And that they're both the genre of person from the modern age gets sucked into the fantasy world, but they're the subgenre of that in which overqualified for the rules of interaction that's about to happen as they get sucked into the fantasy world. So there's that aspect where they're definitely overpowered, and then there's even slightly further than that where they're overpowered, and obviously so, before even setting foot in there. Because sometimes you got things where the characters are super powerful in there or whatnot, but they were like super nerds in the real world. Maybe sort of like Mar. Maybe Mar's along the lines there, but with No Game No Life and Problem Children are coming from another world, aren't they? The characters were strong in their respective worlds. And then they get brought into these fantasy worlds. Both of them involve games and following rules of games and things determined by games. So it's interesting to compare the two, because this one obviously rates much higher. First of all, probably because it's a little bit more approachable. I think Problem Children are coming from another world, aren't they? I'm just going to abbreviate that, Problem Children. Problem Children is, in my opinion, the first episode of that one is more exciting. And that series stays a little bit more exciting through the half that's made there. But at the same time, I think there's a large part of that is a complete... That one's kind of approaching it from the inversion of tropes perspective, whereas this one seems to be playing things a little more straight. I think this gives people something more to latch onto if they're new to the genre or don't have expectations, and they're like, okay, well, I didn't have expectations, but now this series just gave me some and I like it. Versus, like Problem Children throws a lot of that stuff on its head, and that one's for people who've watched the people pulled into the fantasy one and want to see things shaken up a bit. Actually, that one's for people who want to see it shaken up a lot, because this one shakes things up quite a bit as well. But it also kind of leads you along, and at the same time, I think the reason why No Game No Life scores so much higher than it is also because Problem Children kind of established real quickly a very high barrier for it to live up to in terms of expectations. Whereas this one hasn't quite done it. It's like the difference between Dragon Ball Z and One Piece. With Dragon Ball Z, once they start introducing power levels at least, all of a sudden it doesn't really matter what techniques people know or whatnot, except for maybe every little bit here and there. But it's a better question of what's the power level. And even when they stop saying power levels, you just kind of understand that everybody's working in that regard. It's like, what chance do these people have because now Saiyans have a power level of over 1 million, and now they're over 10 million, and at the end of Z they're 100 million billion or something like that. At least with One Piece that I've seen, there isn't this need to, okay, we have to train to get stronger. It's more like the characters have to learn how to adapt what they know to situations more often than not. There's piecemeal learning stuff, but it's not power level, we've got to come up with an excuse why the audience is going to think, alright, higher power level, this is awesome. And No Game No Life is kind of like One Piece in that it establishes a baseline, leaves you questioning, does it always apply? And Problem Children, on the other hand, has super exciting moments where you're like, okay, I don't know how they can top that. And that's part of the problem, is they couldn't top that, in my opinion. Not within the one season that we got. So it's interesting to compare and contrast the two. That said, after watching this, I have been listening to music from Problem Children a lot more, just because it's that one song is played at least those two parts, maybe another part or two, but those parts were exciting. Oh well, anyways, that's what makes this one have the most to talk about. And there's another aspect to it, I guess, which is Problem Children has some more combat heavy elements to it, in my opinion, whereas this one really is about setting up games. So it's like Fibrain in a way, except sometimes way more clever. I'd have to think about Fibrain a lot more carefully to not think of highs in that in terms of cleverness that were not... I'd have to evaluate if those highs were higher than some of No Game No Life's lows, where... yeah. I guess I can't talk too much about it without spoiling it, but it was good. I wonder if there's more seasons that are going to come out, because there could be. Finally, I watched Magical Warfare, and it was okay. It's rated pretty lowly, and I think it's a fair rating. There's definitely going to be people who like it, and I can actually see pretty easily why they could like it, because there's a lot of things about it that can be liked. The real problem with it is it doesn't really draw you in if you're already familiar with a lot of memes and concepts involved. I've talked about, like, Quasar Stigmata, or did I swap that? Stigmata of Quasar, right? Well, Quasar, I've talked about that one, how that one's very interesting in terms of the elements fighting thing, because it doesn't go with your stereotypical fire, water, air, earth, gravity, whatever. That one goes with the periodic table of the elements, which seems obvious, but it's apparently been tricky enough to pull off that. That's the only series I've ever seen really do that. And the point there is they came up with a system for which you can understand that and appreciate that system. So Magical Warfare, I think the magical system is kind of a really good example, where it establishes that there are 6 kinds of magic, but they seem rather arbitrarily chosen, which isn't necessarily bad. Somebody who's, like, really wanting to watch something where you just got 6 systems of magic or something like that, you know, they'll like to go in there and watch it. There's just not, depth-wise, there's not much depth to the mechanics as far as I can tell. Maybe that's the problem where there's only one season, and it was definitely set up so that it should have another season, because it just kind of, it felt like it abruptly ended. And I'm not 100% convinced I saw episode 12, other than the fact that episode 12 on here was labeled the right thing and did the right thing or whatever. I mean, there's other little things about it, but that just kind of it explains it. It's like, it feels like things are there for the sake of the story happening, but you don't kind of feel like they're interacting properly per se. And that's if you're the kind of person who looks deeply, and the kind of people who do that are the people who've seen a lot of these kinds of shows and are looking for interesting ideas. And this one's less interesting ideas per se, and more just interesting conclusions, or potentially interesting conclusions that may have had some thought behind them. Maybe it's the execution of the anime that did a pretty poor job of giving us an idea on why things are the way they are per se. I'm trying to decide if I should say that or not, because that's another really good example of this thing. It's like they had some characters that are really interesting characters, but they can conveniently have their memories changed so that they're bad guys one episode and good guys the next, and then bad guys again and good guys again, and it's thematically inconsistent in that regard. And that's, again, within the lines of, there's stuff there. The character designs are neat, the characters are neat, the dubbing was good in my opinion, and of course I might have a high tolerance for dubs. But nothing about it felt particularly fresh. So, I don't know. And before I end this update, I should, of course, briefly talk about Star Trek The Next Generation, I guess, since I have been briefly mentioning that, and that is something I watched. And what can I say? It was nice. These season 7 episodes, I definitely remembered bits and pieces of a lot of the episodes. Some of the episodes I just remembered outright. After all, it was a cellular peptide cake with mint frosting. But how can you forget that? I don't. How can you remember that? But overall, it's over. I'm glad it's over. It was nice rewatching it, especially since this gave it a fair chance for me to evaluate what I thought about it, and had its entertaining episodes for sure, and some of those could be gone back and rewatched, just like episodes of X-Files and whatnot. But I'm definitely a bigger fan of Stargate. And in my opinion, it's kind of hard to beat Stargate in that regard because it's a bit more of a self-aware show, especially once it gets up to speed. And maybe there's more to it than that. After all, Richard Dean Anderson, he's a hilarious guy, but he's not the only hilarious guy, and that's just an SG-1. Atlantis, my friend started up Atlantis, and this is the first time I'm going to watch SG-1 and Atlantis mixed together so that we get the mixed effect of things developing in both series side by side. And when I say we, this is a friend that I've been showing it to, and so I don't generally talk about Stargate, but that's because it's usually one episode, or 2 episodes, sometimes 3, depending on how much playing we do. And I guess for playing, Splatoon has definitely slowed down. I'm getting tired of logging on, and every game is 6 to 7 Japanese players, and because of the incredible distances, I keep dying a second from where the shots were. So like a blaster can one-hit KO you, but it can also 2-hit KO you if it's pretty close. So I will see one shot coming in, I will get out, get hit by that first shot, but then I will be a nice, I don't know, I'll be further than an aerospray can hit, but then I'll get hit by that second shot, and on their console I'm guessing it thinks I was still there, even though on my screen I could definitely see them still shooting where I was, and I still die. And then when those players get kind of aggressive, then you just can't hit them because the lag seems one directional. Oh well. So I'm definitely slowing down a bit there, which is probably good news for those of you that wanted me to upload anime stuff. I talk more about anime stuff, but at the moment I haven't pre-ordered next month's stuff. Technically I would be doing that tomorrow if I do it on time. And I can't think of anything to mention in that regard. I do know that you'll see it next week. Yeah. That said, I will be recording videos this weekend. How much? Hard to say. But it's another Splatfest, and I want to get a little variety there if I can. But I'm definitely going to be more selective about the videos I upload, so that obviously it's not just the ones I win, but also if, oh look, I got the highest on my team and I got like more kills than everybody else on my team combined, or something like that. Well, we'll find out as we go. I guess that covers everything for this week. Yeah, so y'all have a nice one.